A health alert on the UK campus as officials warn students of a possible case of meningitis.
Firefighters in Frankfurt battling for benefits for firefighters who die of cancer.
One of the largest private employers in the city is making cuts.
This is WKYT News at 5.
There is another health alert today for students on the UK campus. UK officials have notified students of a possible bacterial meningitis case.
It comes just days after they confirmed 3 cases of mumps on campus. WKYT's Hillary Thornton shows us what's being done to protect students in our top story at 5.
With one student in the hospital fighting what is potentially bacterial meningitis, officials here at the University of Kentucky are now working to protect others on campus. The university sent out a letter to students Monday evening letting them know a UK student possibly has the bacterial infection that causes meningitis. In that letter, officials noting that confirmation of the diagnosis is still pending. Additionally, school leaders contacting those they believe are at an increased risk of exposure.
They sent out individual letters to students who may have been in contact.
Those contacted individually also receiving medication to help prevent transmission of the disease. This does come just days after multiple cases of the mumps were confirmed on campus. Students we spoke to say because of how that was handled and the fact that at this point there is only one person showing signs of meningitis, this latest health concern is not causing much alarm.
They seem like they do a pretty good job of catching illnesses, like they had the mumps. They sent out a lot of emails about that. So I'm seeming pretty confident that they can take care of things like that.
Now, UK officials say anyone who was not contacted is not considered at an increased risk, and that includes students who live in the same residence hall or share classes with that student. In Lexington, Hillary Thornton, WKYT.
University officials say the student is being treated at another hospital, not UK Medical Center. We are about to enter a streak of really wild weather.
It's going to begin tonight with rain, but by the time it's all done, we are going to see snow. WKYT Chief Meteorologist Chris Bailey's talking about this really fast change.
Yeah, it's going to be an absolutely wicked weather change as we go into Wednesday, guys. Thunderstorms, heavy rain, 60. And then followed by the snow, courtesy of this storm system that right now is bringing a major severe weather outbreak to parts of the deep south, parts of Mississippi, Louisiana. All kinds of tornado warnings are currently out for that storm. Not really worried about the severe weather threat from this. It's more of a heavy rain threat and high wind threat, but you do indeed see a lot of those red cones showing up into the deep south. Those are active tornado warnings. Look what's going on in Tennessee and southern Kentucky. Rain beginning to develop now across central and eastern Kentucky. We'll start to see some rain into southern Kentucky over the next hour or two, and that will slowly lift its way on to the north. Let's look at a future radar and watch how quickly the rains build in this evening, and especially once we get into the wee hours of the morning. It just keeps on coming at us from south to north. That'll be some heavy downpours that can cause some local stream and street flooding into the first half of tomorrow with some rumbles of thunder. High winds will be a major factor as well as we go through tomorrow, and I think especially on Thursday. Those gusts Thursday behind the storm can reach 40 to 50 miles per hour, and that's when it is snowing into parts of central and eastern Kentucky. Guys, when I come back in a few minutes, we got a brand new hour-by-hour forecast that will track the timing of tomorrow's changes, and if you blink on some of those changes, you may miss them, and that's why we'll pause the hour-by-hour on those specific timelines when I come back in a few minutes.
Thank you, Chris. It's a different type of battle for firefighters. Today, they headed to the state capitol to fight for more support. They gave testimony on Senate Bill 195, which makes cancer a line of duty death and extends benefits to the firefighters' families. WKYT's Mark Barber shows us why firefighters say they face an increased risk of the disease.
As Lexington firefighters are fighting for this bill, they say one of their own is weighing heavily on their mind. Firefighter Matt Logston is now in a Chicago center battling stage 4 cancer. They say this bill would provide some financial security for his family and any others in this difficult situation. Senate Bill 195 would classify the death of a firefighter from cancer as a line of duty death. The bill calls for the state to give $80,000 to families of firefighters who die from cancer. Firefighters testifying before the Appropriations and Revenue Committee say they have a higher risk of developing cancer because they're exposed to dangerous substances when they fight fires.
And what we're being exposed to is that pores are opening up through our bodies, and some of these toxins are being absorbed through the skin.
As the governor tries to slash the state's spending to alleviate the multi-billion-dollar pension shortfall, firefighters are also focused on finance. They're putting restrictions on the bill to keep it from burdening the budget.
In order for the families to qualify for benefits, the firefighter must have worked as a firefighter for 5 years in a row, was under the age of 65 at time of death, and did not use tobacco for 10 years prior to the diagnosis of cancer.
The committee approved Senate Bill 195 this morning, so it will now be heard on the floor. If it's approved there, it will move on to the House for a vote. In Frankfort, Mark Barber, WKYT.
This bill we're talking about is not retroactive, so benefits would not extend to Joe Vissing's family. The veteran Lexington firefighter died of skin cancer last year.
A Lexington-based business announced today it is cutting jobs. Lexmark plans to eliminate 550 jobs, which is about 4% of its workforce. They haven't said yet where those layoffs will take place. WKYT's Kristen Kennedy is tracking the plans and what they could mean for Lexington.
Lexmark made the announcement in their fourth quarter earnings release. It's not clear how many jobs will be lost in Lexington.
Lexmark's CEO Paul Rook said the company had a good fourth quarter. Revenue, though, was down from the same quarter last year. The cuts are part of a restructuring plan expected to save the company $67 million this year and $100 million next year. Lexmark says the jobs will be eliminated within the next 12 months. The company went on to say they are continuing to explore strategic alternatives to enhance shareholder value, which could include the sale of the entire company or spin-off of a portion of it.
Coming up at 6, we're talking with an economist about the impact of these layoffs and how it'll affect the industry as a whole. In Lexington, Kristen Kennedy, WKYT.
2,300 people work at Lexmark's location here in Lexington.
Disciplinary hearings against 5 Paris police officers will resume tomorrow. Our county-by-county coverage begins in Bourbon County. During an 8-hour meeting on Monday, the police chief outlined his case for firing the officers. He says they spent too much time hanging out in the dispatch center, but their lawyer calls it a case of retaliation. Tomorrow's meeting was scheduled for 9 a.m., but it has since been moved to 3 o'clock in the afternoon. A Fleming County couple accused of abusing their foster child will go to trial next week. The trial for Natasha and Vernon Slaybot begins on Monday. Natasha was charged with abuse in December of 2013, but was later indicted for assault. A grand jury indicted Vernon in March of last year. The Ledger Independent reports that the couple could face up to 20 years in prison if they're convicted.
The Wildcats return to Rupp tonight after a 2-point overtime loss on the road Saturday. With the regular season winding down, they are in need of a victory. WKYT's Rob Bromley's live for us at Rupp Arena with a preview. Hello, Rob.
Hello, Amber, and the Wildcats get Alabama for the second time this season here tonight, and with a victory they can stay on top in the SEC race with only 3 games left to go. Kentucky beat Alabama easily down in Tuscaloosa back on January 9th. It was the Cats' first road win of the season. In that game, we didn't see much from 6'8" senior Shannon Hale. He's really come on, and Alabama has been a much different team.
They started a totally different lineup than when we played them. They're shooting a ton more threes than when we played them, so they're a fairly different team. Shannon Hale, who's a fantastic player, wasn't playing particularly well at that time when we played him, and now he's a guy that they're going through offensively. Obviously, Obasahan is the straw that stirs their drink, but Shannon Hale's a guy that's made them, has really sparked them in the run that they had because of the level that he's playing at.
Kentucky and Alabama tonight, 7 o'clock on ESPN, so it will be an early tip. And you know, the Tide had won 5 games in a row, and they had some good wins. They've beaten Florida, Texas A&M, LSU. They lost last weekend to Mississippi State, and their winning streak was snapped. Much more coming up a little bit later in sports, but for now, that's it from here on the floor of Rupp. Sam, Amber, back to you.
We will see you in just a bit, Rob. Thank you. The Cats are going for their 36th consecutive victory on the Rupp Arena floor tonight. The Centers for Disease Control is investigating more than a dozen cases of the Zika virus possibly spread through sex.
The 14 cases all involve men who visited areas with Zika outbreaks and may have been infected through female partners who did not travel. Zika has been linked to a rare birth defect, and 2 of the partners are pregnant. Until now, there have been just 2 cases thought to have spread through sex. President Obama unveiling his proposal to close the detention center at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba today. That plan would fulfill a campaign promise the president made back in 2008. But as Mark Albert shows us, the president is getting stiff opposition from some people in Congress.
President Obama announced Tuesday his latest proposal to close the detention facility at Guantanamo Bay in Cuba.
It's counterproductive to our fight against terrorists because they use it as propaganda in their efforts to recruit. Moreover, keeping this facility open is contrary to our values.
There are 91 detainees left at Guantanamo, with a third cleared for transfers to other countries. 56 would be moved to the continental U.S., including accused 9/11 mastermind Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. The White House says it will cost as much as $475 million to move them and renovate or build a new facility, but it will save up to $85 million a year in operating costs.
We can ensure our security, uphold our highest values around the world, and save American taxpayers a lot of money in the process.
The administration has identified 13 locations in the U.S., including in South Carolina, Kansas, and Colorado. But lawmakers from those states have opposed the moves, along with Republican leaders.
What he is now proposing to do is in direct contradiction with the will of the American people.
It would be illegal under current law to transfer foreign terrorists at Guantanamo into the United States.
The White House is urging Congress to act before Obama leaves office. Mark Albert for CBS News, the White House.
Speaker of the House Paul Ryan issued a statement saying the president's plan failed to include details required by law, including the exact cost and location of an alternate facility.
Tonight, Nevada will get its say in the 2016 Republican race for president. The Nevada caucuses take place tonight. Donald Trump has a double-digit lead over his rivals going into the caucuses. Senators Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio are expected to battle for second place. Dozens of people gathered in the state capitol rotunda today saying reproductive rights are at risk. The state ACLU and Planned Parenthood sponsored the event. Supporters say recent legislation is getting in the way of women's health care and their freedom to choose. Several of the bills the group is against say that it makes it more difficult for women to get abortions.
Abortion is not evil. It's a choice for people that need medical services and reproductive freedom. So I'm speaking out. Joni's speaking out. We're sick of them.
Earlier this month, Governor Matt Bevin signed a bill requiring informed consent for abortions. The bill requires women to have a face-to-face or real-time video meeting with a doctor at least 24 hours before having an abortion.
Chocolate maker Mars is recalling candy bars in 55 countries. The recall includes millions of Mars, Snickers, and Milky Way chocolate bars made in the Netherlands. The recall was issued after plastic pieces were found in one of its products. Mars has not said which countries, though, are affected by the recall.
It is time now for better living, health, education, and consumer news that impacts your life. State officials are urging people to limit how much locally caught fish they eat. The Kentucky Department for Environmental Protection says samples taken from lakes in 2009 and 2013 gave them a better understanding of mercury levels statewide. The new warning says the general population should only eat bottom feeders like catfish once a week. Top predators such as smallmouth bass should only be eaten once a month. Pregnant women and young children should eat even less. With nearly 100 confirmed cases of travel-related Zika virus in the United States, a lab in Galveston, Texas is spearheading the research to find a vaccine. As Omar Villafranco found out, scientists there have been studying the virus for decades.
White powder in this glass vial is the Zika virus.
We have a sample of it.
Dr. Robert Tesh of the University of Texas Medical Branch in Galveston has known about Zika since the 1960s.
Until the virus really got to Brazil, and there were a lot of cases, nobody really was interested in Zika.
Times have changed.
Times have changed, and now we realize how much we don't know.
Zika may be linked to the birth defect microcephaly. The condition is marked by abnormally small heads in babies due to stunted brain growth. Brazil is ground zero in the fight against Zika.
We got to see the people that were being affected.
Where Dr. Shannon Rossi recently traveled and saw firsthand the devastating effects of the virus.
It's heartbreaking and it's critical, I think.
The University of Texas Medical Branch is home to one of the world's largest collection of viruses. Nearly 7,000 samples are stored at the facility. With the focus now on Zika, Rossi and a team of scientists are working on a quick test to detect the virus in humans and eventually develop a vaccine.
Are we closer to a vaccine?
Yes. Every single day that people like me and my fellow colleagues around the bench were one step closer to a vaccine.
The National Institutes of Health says there could be a Zika vaccine by the end of 2017. Omar Villafranca, CBS News, Galveston, Texas.